Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the trends and tropes of the horror genre. Tonight we are talking about weird little tricks and traps within the horror movie genre. This is Mike Campbell, and I am with
Eric Lee
and
Liz Williams.
And that is about all I know about tricks and traps, so I'm going to bow out right now. And Eric will tell you everything you need to know about tricks and traps. No, I have a feeling this is what I've been noodling around in my head is that I think Eric has the engineer, architect, mathematic brain. And I do not. I absolutely do not. And I think you love puzzles and tricks and traps. And
this is the Rube Goldberg horror.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think it fits very well within your sort of
we did
personal constitution.
We did expand this to include things like puzzles,
sure,
and game theory kind of stuff
which made it even more complicated.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, then it just like Mike's head starts spinning around like Reagan.
Right.
So I think.
So tell us what you think about when you think about a trick or a trap within a horror film.
Okay, well, the touchstone movie here is Saw.
Sure.
Right. That is the
100%.
It's a death trap.
Right.
And how do you get out of it? And why did you get put in the predicament? And what you gonna do about it?
Right.
And then the horrible, painful ways that these mechanical devices will destroy you if you screw up.
So do you see Saw as a running continuation of a long and storied history of tricks and traps, or do you see it as setting off a whole new genre of films?
You go all the way back to The Pit and the Pendulum, right? Edgar Allan Poe.
Sure.
Right. That is the original trap. Or more Edgar Allan Poe, The Cask of Amontillado.
Right.
You get blocked into a wall.
Right.
It's like it's a trap. And
right.
Of course, that one doesn't end well. I mean, it's just it's sort of like he gets bricked into an alcove and he just dies. It's not a whole lot of cleverness involved there, but it is it can be something like I also had thought of this like The Deadliest Game. Which is the 1930s movie of which it came back to life a number of times, which is pretty much you get kidnapped and then run out as sport, right? That is right. And because humans are the deadliest game,
right.
As in big game hunting, and sort of they've had. Jean-Claude Van Damme had one. I think it was Hard Target. I think was one. And
that's a Van Damme.
Ice-T was in one where he played a homeless guy who got cut loose, and I'm trying to remember what the name of that one was, but it was another.
There's Running Game.
Yeah, the Running Man.
Running Man, not Running Game.
Running Man would be a good example.
Yeah.
The recent
in the sci-fi
movie
genre.
The Hunt.
The Hunt. Yeah,
would be one. But so there's that kind of a variant. Trapped in a maze, there's the labyrinthine kind of things. You could even go back to something
with
like
Dave Made a Maze.
Oh, you might hear about Dave Made a Maze. There's the, go to something like Jason and the Argonauts, or Clash of the Titans, where you have the Medusa and her. And running around and you're trying, it's like it's the worst game of freeze tag you ever played. Right. It's like you go around the wrong corner and you get turned to stone.
But what draws you to the trick?
I love board games. Film? I love puzzles. I love escape rooms. I love jigsaw puzzles. I think that there's it's an intellectual exercise, and I think the best of these kinds of movies allow the viewer to play along with the characters.
Right.
So some of these things, it might even be as simple as even something that's more about riddles or trying to decipher clues to find your way out of a tricky situation. I know that is and certainly that goes to even some fanciful stuff like the Harry Potter movies.
Sure.
It's like you're presented with a a conundrum, that you have to defeat this thing. And, part of this goes back to my uber geeky ways as a 13-year-old boy playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
Right. That is, you wander in and you find something, and it's like you push this button and you lift the arm of the statue and it opens a secret door, but you have to check to make sure it doesn't open up a pit of spikes underneath you.
Right.
I mean, that's in that way, that was part of the charm of role-playing games, was out thinking, you're the dungeon master and you're trying to, and when you're a 13-year-old kid, you're playing to kill off your buddies,
right?
and if you're the other guys, you're trying to steal the gold from the guy,
right,
who set the maze up that you're trying, and kill the dragon. And so that all that kind of stuff, that's my history, and so I gravitate to those sorts of things. And there have been some, but Saw being the preeminent one, and I think that we, unless one of you guys could toss it out there. There've been so many in that series.
Yeah.
But that is the classic one that a lot of people think of when it is Tricks and Traps.
Now, where are you at with Tricks and Traps, Liz? Where do you fall on this one?
Definitely Saw as the first one that I thought of, and said I could just pick the. I feel like I don't seek out Tricks and Traps movies, but I enjoy, I enjoy them when I see them.
Yeah.
Except, I do seek out Saw and things like that. But, it's not always my favorite thing. Do you want to play a game? No. But
well,
there's some really good ones, and it's creative. So
one of the first ones that came to mind when we first started talking about this was the film that Liz, you and I both talked about when we talked about Halloween horror, and that was The Houses That October Built from 2014, because that whole thing is predicated on a big it's a big trick, right? It's like, and it's a trap. It's both, right?
Yep.
It's a trick and a trap. Right. And it's a Halloween, so it's a trick or treat.
Well,
trick or trap.
Haunted houses are classic.
Yeah.
Trap-filled entities, right? And I think
this isn't just a haunted house. This is haunted houses. This is like multiple haunted houses. Yeah.
I think one that I'm thinking of that really fits this bill is 13 Ghosts.
Sure.
The 90s variant of it.
Right.
With it's like Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah.
And Matthew Lillard and but they it's this glass house with moving panels, and it's got all this funky script on it, and if you step in the wrong spot, this sheet of glass comes down and slices you in half. It's like the half house, half guillotine.
Right.
It's like, hi, that's got to be fun. Or some of the more video gamey ones, Resident Evil's has got a ton of this kind of stuff in it.
Yeah.
Right, where there's like, it's the laser maze. How are you going to get out of this? Oh, you got cubed up. Sorry about that, buddy. And that really has a left, right, jump up, jump down. That kind of in a video gamey kind of a way.
Sure.
That is a. But they certainly all those Resident Evil movies are play like a video game, run the gauntlet, shoot the monsters. Get to the end, get to daylight, and maybe you're still alive at the end of the game.
Right.
Which I don't tend to like those movies. They're not because they don't actually play the intellectual thing. It's more of a, it's the descendant of quick twitch button mashing.
Yeah.
Which is jumpy puzzles are the bane of my existence. Old man fumbly fingers. I can't. I wasn't good at the violin. I'm not good at button mashing video games. So anyway, so that's my history with Tricks and Traps, puzzly horror. And so, Mike, I'll let you lead off.
Oh my God! Okay,
let's see what you've got in store.
Yeah. Well,
how did you interpret this?
As soon as I interpreted. The internet helped me interpret it. I typed into the Google machine trick, trap, horror, best of lists. And this was one of the first that came up. And I was like, oh my God, it's a Criterion Collection film. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. It's a 1960 Japanese film titled Jikogu, which is Hell.
Okay.
It is literally the word hell. It was also titled The Sinners of Hell, and it was directed by a fellow by the name of Nakagawa. I'm not going to try to pronounce any of the other actors or actresses in the film because I know I would stumble through them, and I don't want to do that. But I will say it carries on a rich tradition set forth with Kwaidan and Onibaba. Mm-hmm. This one is slightly, it's probably slightly less elaborate, slightly less produced than obviously Kwaidan and certainly Onibaba, but it has gained significant cult status over the years. Yeah, Jikogu. Unfortunately the company that did it, Shintoho, declared bankruptcy right after this film was done, and so they never really went back and did any other films.
Well, it's not like Kwaidan ever had a sequel.
Right. This film is really fascinating, and it was really wild. And basically, the trick here, or the trap, is essentially hell. It's purgatory. That's the trick and the trap. It involves a young student, Shiro, who's set to marry his girlfriend. He and his buddy, who may or may not be a demon from hell, go out one night. They hit a guy. They're driving their vehicle, and they hit him and they kill him. Turns out that the gentleman was part of one of the local gangs, and they of course clam up about it. But it's tearing inside of Shiro, the fact that they've killed this guy. Mm-hmm. He eventually he goes back to see his mom, who lives in an old folks' home, and everything that can ensue ensues in the course of his sort of living a hell on earth. Everything from there's drug abuse, there's prostitution, there's drinking, there's sex, there's murder, there's suicide. I mean, all of it is laid out, and this guy is having to contend with all of it. The last probably third act of the film is him literally going to hell and them explaining to him why he has gone to hell. And the trick in this case is he's sentenced and punished by Lord Enma, which is like, I guess Lord Enma is the Japanese version of the devil. They don't have 9 layers of hell. They have 8 layers of hell, which I didn't know, which was interesting. But while searching, he's basically, his girlfriend tells him, oh yeah, before you went to hell, we were supposed to have a daughter together, but she, because of everything you've done, she's in hell, so you need to go find her. And so this poor guy is basically, he has to go through, he has to sort of wander through hell, suffering for all the wrongdoings of everything he's done. And he gets to see people being boiled and burned and flayed and dismembered. And it's incredibly gory for a film from 1960. Like, I thought Herschel Gordon Lewis was like the first guy to do gore like that. Well, no, that's not the case. It was really Nakagawa who was the first to do this. But it's an amazing film. It is a film that in an essay for the Criterion Collection, a guy named Chuck Stevens wrote, it is overflowing with brackish ponds of bubbling pus, brain-rattling disjunctions of sound and image, and at times almost dauntingly incomprehensible plot twists and eye-assaulting bouts of brutish montage. Jikogu is more than merely a boundary-pummeling classic of the horror genre. It's as lurid a study of sin without salvation the silver screen has ever seen.
Wow!
And that's why it's a Criterion Collection film. Yeah, I won't. There is literally, I could spend the next hour and a half trying to explain the plot to you, and I absolutely could not, because it is so goddamn confusing. But it's a really interesting film, and you can see why it was such a.
So was he? But is he tasked with challenges to get out of one portion of hell to the next?
Well, he's tasked with sort of clearly his buddy is some sort of a demon, lesser demon, some sort of demonic presence, and he's constantly like pushing his buttons while on Earth, right? and testing him in that way. But then he ultimately gets thrown to hell, and then he's having to contend with trying to find his unborn daughter in hell. Yeah, it's a real mind bender, but I do recommend it. There is a Criterion Collection version. They don't have a Blu-ray version of it. They just have a standard DVD copy of it. Still looks really good. It's a pretty incredible film for 1960.
At some point, someone like Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome, should try and pick that title up and refresh it. Because if it's got enough love to get a Criterion DVD, they could probably bring it up, punch it up to get to the HD Blu-ray. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, Jikogu, 1960.
Interesting.
Yep.
Liz, how about you?
Okay, mine is not as highbrow as that. Mine is a movie that Bloody Disgusting said, shoddy acting and a semi-weak script can't hold this movie back. It's simply too good a premise and too well directed to let minor hindrances derail its creepy premise.
Right on.
And this is 1997's Cube.
Nice.
Directed by Vincenzo Natali. Who also wrote and directed Eric's favorite sexy horror movie, Splice. Okay, so Cube is about a group of 5 strangers who wake up in a cube-shaped room, and they're all kind of dressed in kind of like, looks like prison outfits, and no one knows where they are or how they got there. They start to figure their way out, but as they move from one room to another, certain rooms have traps, such as wires that dice you up into tiny little people pieces. That is literally the first scene of the movie.
And you know who that was? That was Julian Richings.
Julian Richings from Anything for Jackson.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
The old guy.
Doesn't say a word.
Oh my God.
Gets it in the first 5 minutes of the film.
Like, you don't even learn his name.
Nope.
And then he becomes bouillon cubes.
Bouillon cubes, literally. There's some face melting acid. There's like a window that opens and then you're pretty much in space and you're gonna fall out of that. So those are your tricks and their traps. Also, they're pretty much in a giant trap. They're in this cube that they discover because one of them is a math genius. It's got like 26 rooms across. It's a giant Rubik's Cube, and it keeps moving. So there's like 17,000 rooms of this cube, and they've got to figure out how to get out of it. Everybody's name, the character name, is named after a real life prison. They have kind of different little things like that. But it's a good film. But there is an actor in it named Maurice Dean Wint who plays kind of, I guess I would say he's the main character. He's this cop named Quentin.
Yeah.
He is... Whoa, like there is no scenery left after he has chewed it all. It is he chewed his way out of the cube. That is how he got out. It's something to behold. But just like Bloody Disgusting said, that the shoddy acting will not hold this film back. It's a good movie.
How's it look in 2021?
It looks good.
Is it dated at
all? It looks good. It looks good. Yeah. Not really. Yeah. That's not really dated. What's cool is... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say this is a collision, but I have backups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't.
I mean, I assume it's like on the cusp of like heavy CGI versus practical effects.
Very little CGI.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It's like on the cusp. Right. Like 1997 was that
built
sort of
one
transitional
big
era.
Cube.
Yeah.
And they built one big cube on a sound set and then used the same one and just changed out these like screens in front of it, like to make it different colors. So they filmed the whole thing in one big old cube.
Yeah,
also, this is
design.
It's cool looking. This is the beginning of a series. They've got a sequel called Cube 2, Hypercube, and a prequel called Cube 0. It's a fun film. It's definitely worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
And
have you watched all the Cube films?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I watched Cube for this.
Yeah.
And I thought it was. I think Bloody Disgusting is spot on. It's
100%.
It's an awesome premise. All the characters are there's like overacting.
Right.
Everybody, and even like the ones who are underplaying. Like there's a savant, and he's kind of like of course he's going to be sort of spazzy. And then Nikki Guadagni, who's in Ready or Not as the auntie, the crazy auntie with the battle axe, is the doctor.
Oh
yeah. In this, and Nicole DeBoer, who is the math whiz, went on to play in Deep Space Nine.
Right.
And so that was her big. So anyway, so it has a lot of these quasi-famous, the kinds of people who show up at Comic-Cons.
Right.
So, I found, for a 1997 film, I think it holds up pretty well because of the great set design.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cool looking. Definitely worth watching.
And the traps are
fits
nasty.
the bill here.
Yeah.
The traps are nasty.
All right, Eric. Tell us, since this
what you got,
this
Eric?
is your go-to.
Okay.
What is a good trick and trap film?
I've got a 2015 film, which is called Circle. This is like a giant game of Russian roulette.
Is this the one based on 13 Tazamati?
I don't know. Maybe.
I almost picked that.
50 people have been abducted by aliens and find themselves standing in two concentric circles. Right? And each person is standing on their own bright red disc. And everything else in the room is blacked out. It's like a black box theater. Right? And these people realize that if they step off the circle or if they touch another person, they get hit with an electric blast and they're dead. And these people are all strangers, grabbed seemingly randomly from their daily lives. Many of them were stuck in traffic in, I think it's Los Angeles. But they have no idea why they were the ones who got selected for this deadly game of musical chairs. And what ends up happening is that there's a countdown that there's an audible beep, 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 and then zap, someone gets
so
zorched.
They got to do something?
They eventually figure out that they can control who gets it next.
Oh, interesting.
And the strangers represent the full swath of society. All ages, races, classes, and backgrounds are here. Naturally, that leads to conflicts. As the group starts getting picked off one by one, they start panicking, and they come up with these weird strategies. And the first strategy was, well, the old one. Let's everybody vote for the old people. And then the older people go, wait a minute, that's not fair. And then the old people.
That's the COVID strategy.
Yeah, the old people got zorched, but then all of a sudden, once it started getting past the people who were clearly sort of old, really geriatric, then it was like, all right, you next, old man. It's like, what do you mean? I'm 60. I'm not old. And then it's like, what gives you the right to tell me, punk? And it's like, there's a guy who's. It's like an ex-con, and then there's a cop, and the cop's the guy who just like starts getting really mouthy with the rest of the group.
Right.
And then there's a pregnant woman and a little girl, and everybody goes, "We can't kill her."
Right.
It's a little kid.
Right.
And it's like, how many of us do you think are going to make it out alive? I think it gets reduced to one.
Right.
And then they all start looking around, and then there are people who try and rig the system, and they get zorched, and they get. But this is a whole cast of. No names.
Right.
You don't recognize anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of the time someone gets introduced and then they get zapped immediately.
Huh.
And in fact, like one of the first people to get introduced is the voice of reason.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, be calm.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. We're going to get out of here alive.
Right.
Okay. Now next, bzook. And then it falls down, gets some mysterious force drags him away.
Right.
And then, of course, people are just freaking out because they're realizing it's like, oh my God, the end is coming. And it becomes this big society play, a sociological play.
Huh.
And it begs the question, who adds value to society?
Right.
under what decisions, like does the adage of women and children, it's like protect the women and children, protect the pregnant woman, or that guy's an asshole, he deserves to die,
right,
or or it's like I'm a hardworking businessman. It's like you guys are deadbeats, and I actually add to society, and you don't. And then people get fed up with that guy, and they exhort him. But it really feels like the big college psychology experiment. Like if you got to play, it's like if you had the shot, shock this person if they can't tell, if they don't know who's going to zap you, you feel free to shock that person.
Every time I scrolled by this on Netflix, all I could think about, because the poster look is so reminiscent of Logan's Run, and I was just like, what is this cheap Logan's Run ripoff? Right. But this actually sounds really cool.
It was fascinating, and it really does. And as it starts winnowing down, all of a sudden it becomes like, a reality TV show game competition. It's like, okay, you and me and the hippie chick,
right,
and the black dude. Let's vote that guy off. And it was like, and then that guy goes, wait, no. And then they start trying to get these alliances, and then one person backs out of the alliance, and then the wrong person gets zapped. And it's like, it was great, and it was part of it was like guessing, because you're playing along, like who's going to be left without a chair,
right.
So anyway,
I'm gonna watch Circle.
That's puzzle horror if you ever saw it.
All right. Puzzle horror number 1 for Eric.
Okay.
Circle 2015.
2015.
All right.
Yeah, easily available for free on Amazon.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Prime.
So, as part of my research, not only did I go to Google, I went to Movie Madness, and I talked to one of the guys at Movie Madness, and I said, "Help!"
Oh, poor Mike.
And he said, have you ever seen this film? He said everybody hates this film, and everybody talks crap about the acting in the film. It's a film from 2016 called Fear Inc. And I said, no, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this film. It's an American horror comedy film directed by Vincent Masciali and written by a guy named Luke Barnett. And it is a really, really fun film. And I know I mentioned, obviously, I made sort of an homage to this early on when I mentioned The Houses That October Built, because it's not dissimilar. It basically involves a guy and his girlfriend who go out to sort of a horror-themed bar one night, and he's incredibly disappointed by the fact that the horror-themed bar is not scary, and it's not really much of anything. It's like, some spider webs up on the walls and, some ghoulish masks, and that's about it. And he's, very vocally and loudly complaining about the fact that this place just isn't scary. And this guy comes up to him and says, "Oh, you want to be scared? Here, call this number." And he hands him a business card. And he discusses it with the girlfriend, and she says, "Yeah, I think it's one of these. There's these new these new kind of theatrical groups that will like do a fully immersive, like at your house, scare the holy hell out of you, kinds of experiences." And he was like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool. We should totally do that." And she's like, "No, I'm not doing that. That's terrible. I don't want people at our house. I don't want anything to do with this." Eventually, they invite a couple over to their house. It's Halloween evening, and things start to go haywire very, very quickly. There's people lurking in their backyard. There's people lurking in the side yard. There's people lurking in the house. There's all sorts of strange things start to happen. And the great thing about this film, and that's all I'm going to say about the film, because that's really the whole premise about it, the whole premise. But the great thing about it is, it's like, oh, this is clearly a trick. Oh no, it's real. Oh no, it's a trick. Oh no, it's real. Oh my God, how could you kill one of the actors? Oh, he's not dead. It's just like they keep flipping it back and forth throughout the course of the film. And depending on your disposition, you may like or you may hate the way it ends. And I could see it going both ways. Because it either ends with, "Oh, this is just a big joke," or, "Oh, this was never a joke." Right. but it ends in. I think it ends in kind of I think it kind of ends in kind of a really interesting way. The other big hurdle you have to get over here is again the acting, because the one guy is kind of this sort of surfer bro dude. I really liked his character. I could see in my research I read quite a bit about I saw quite a few complaints about this character and his acting. I thought he was really good. I'm not sure what the actor's name was. Lucas Neff. Lucas Neff is his name. He plays Joe. But I thought he was really good, and I think the film ends in, I think, as I say, really, I think, kind of an interesting way, and it's a pretty fun, simple movie.
Are there good scares in it?
There's a couple pretty good scares in it, and much like House That October Built, you could easily see a second and possibly a third version of Fear Inc. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Fear Inc., Liz?
I thought I'd had, but your description, no. I think there was one just called like Fear something else with maybe Stephen Dorff or something in it.
The
I don't know.
Fear Factor, which came out. It just
maybe that's what I'm thinking of, where they like put bugs in someone's house. I remember that because I was like, nope, I'm out.
I think there's a reality show kind of, or these folks are doing like a ghost story or ghost hunters kind of a thing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And then it's like and so Amy, I think she's done. It's like she's only done like 5 reviews for us, but that review for the Fear Factor still keeps popping up on our on stuff that people research. It's like that. The Farm and our Arbor Day special are our big 3, and I would have never guessed that.
Nope.
So, Liz.
All right. My next one is a 2014 Dutch film that in America was released as Cub. In Dutch, it's Whelp, W-E-L-P. So it's called Cub. It's directed by Jonas Govaert. And this is the story of a little, I guess the Belgian equivalent of a Boy Scout named Sam, who goes on a camping trip with his fellow scouts and their pack leaders, Chris and Peter, and the camp like chef, this hot girl named Jasmine. And Chris and Peter are like 22-year-olds, so is Jasmine, but they're taking all of these like 10-year-old boys out to the campsite. And they're telling the kids about the legend of Kai, who is a half boy, half wolf who lives in these woods. And Sam really kind of connects to this legend. So they go out there, they're in this spot. Also, the woods are supposed to be haunted because people who worked for a old bus company that shut down hung themselves in these woods. So yeah, great place for a Boy Scout camp out.
Sure.
So Sam is bullied a little bit and a loner from the rest of the group. And of course, when he's out in the woods, he encounters this feral boy who's wearing this mask that looks like it's made out of bark, and he's covered in dirt. And Sam, of course, thinks that he's Kai. Everybody thinks Sam is lying until people start disappearing and getting caught up in some pretty elaborate booby traps out there in the forest, such as there's like a tent that the girl thinks she hears a baby crying in, and she goes in the tent to see what's there, and it just swallows her up and lifts her up into the trees, and then she's hanging there in that tent. Classic, thing like that. There's one that's so good where there's a tree that falls on someone and they go to grab a limb of the tree thinking they're going to pull themselves up, and it causes another tree to fall on them from the other section. So that's probably the best kill in the whole thing. The director, I was reading an interview with him, and someone said like, well, you didn't want to make this like in English, you decided to do it in Dutch. And he said, well, if I did it in English to be murdered and stuff on screen, they said the kids had to be at least 16. And he didn't want that. He wanted them to be little boys. So he stuck to his original.
Wow.
So it's called Cub. It is, again, Boy Scout horror. And it's got everything you could want. It's for horror fans.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of silly, but it's lovable. The kids are great actors. There's definitely some large plot holes, but you can completely overlook them because of how cool the actors are and all the cool traps and tricks, and it's fun. It's fun.
You know what's funny about this film, Liz, is I've never seen the film, but I do own the soundtrack because the soundtrack is it's done by a guy named Steve Moore, who was in the famous sort of synth band Zombie, but he also did the music for VFW and Bliss and Mayhem.
Okay.
And he's done like a ton of albums with his band Zombie. And I bought it just based on the fact that it was him, and I own the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. Now I got to see the movie.
Now you got to see the movie.
Mike, were you ever in the Cub Scouts?
I was totally in the Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
I made it all the way through Weeblo, and I was going to start Boy Scouts, but then I was like, meh.
Yeah. I got to Bear, and then I moved to Corvallis, and then I didn't find another troop. So, but the thing is that, truth be told, I actually learned a lot more about going out in the woods with my dad, doing field research, putting on the electroshocker backpack in the streams and zapping fish.
Right.
These kids didn't learn much except for once you find out who this Kai really is and what's going on, it kind of takes a turn, but it's really good and it's fun.
All right, Eric, what do you got?
Well, you made mention of this earlier. This is the 2017 film.
What?
Directed by Bill Waterston. This is Dave Made a Maze.
Oh, yeah.
This is a complete nutter of a film. It's actually more horror adjacent, but it features literally a killer maze and plenty of traps and monsters within the maze. The trick here is that the maze is made entirely out of paper products. Dave, an actor named Nick Thune, is a deadbeat artist, and he's created a labyrinth out of cardboard in his living room, and he's managed to get himself lost within it. The maze on the outside looks like a big appliance box, like maybe for a refrigerator. And it's got like a little smokestack and a little window cut out. But it's much, much bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. It's a magic box.
Right.
Like a TARDIS of sorts. And once Dave's girlfriend, Annie...
Man, this might be the nerdiest podcast we've done so far.
It's got to be.
You've mentioned Star Trek, TARDISes, and Dungeons and Dragons.
It's like I'm too old to care what kind of labels you want to throw at me, Campbell. Come at me. So Annie, played by Mira Rohit Kumbani, who was fantastic. I hope to see her in more stuff. When she arrives home, he calls out to her for help, and she goes, "Oh, Dave, here, let me come get you." And he goes, No, don't come inside. It's dangerous. So, hey, listen, call Gordon, and he'll help. And Gordon's his best friend. And then when Gordon finds out, he goes, "Hey, that's cool." And they call all of their friends, including a guy who's a filmmaker, like a classic New York artist filmmaker, and his boom operator and his cameraman. And eventually you get about 15 people gathered around the living room going, "Oh my God, this is crazy." And then they go into the thing and it's like, "It's huge." And they, of course, get lost in the maze. Despite Dave going, "Don't come in, it's too dangerous. Don't do it, it's too dangerous." The maze, as it turns out, it's a killer. There's a Death Star-like garbage grinder trap, which is filled with things that look like toilet paper rolls, but it's slowly moving towards this big mouth that's chomping people up, or not chomping, it's chomping garbage up, but people,
not like the Death Star.
Like the Death Star. There's a big swinging pendulum with a cardboard blade. There's a cardboard minotaur, and there's a bunch of spear traps, of course, all made out of paper products. The partiers who enter the maze end up falling victim to the maze's deadly surprises, and it's sort of gory because when somebody dies, they burst into a bunch of red streamers and confetti. it's substituting for viscera and blood, and it's actually kind of if you actually use Caro syrup and sausages, they really go over the top with the red confetti and streamers.
Right.
And of course everybody's screaming. But the absolute best part is this one trap in the maze where they all turn into paper bag puppets. All the characters sort of walk into this room, and they all. You kind of have to see it. It's the characters, the little lunch bag puppets where there's the fold and then they go, "Hi, how are you doing?" So they all look at each other. It's like, "Oh my God, what happened to us? We've turned into bag puppets." And
just watch the trailer alone. Yes. Even if you're not intrigued, watch the trailer alone, because you will be able to visualize exactly what the lunacy that Eric's talking about, because a lot of the lunacy is laid out in the trailer.
Yeah, and there's other things like the director uses forced perspective with the cardboard, where you have this thing, and all of a sudden what looks like something that's really that's in proportion turns out it's just forced, and then someone comes up towards the camera, and you realize they get huge, and it's like, no, it's just this little cardboard prop, and then they're like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So a lot of visual tricks. It feels like Alice in Wonderland meets the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Right.
It's totally absurd, totally surreal, but it's really fun, really approachable, silly, and taking what would be a classic a trapped maze and making it into a good evening, and just it's a fun watch. All right, it's available. It is available streaming, so go ahead and catch that.
Yep. All right, Liz.
Oh
okay.
No, is it Liz again, or I think it's back to Mike.
It's you.
Oh, it's back to me. Okay. I was just excited to talk about this film because we haven't really talked about it all that much. This is the 1959 American super campy, supernatural film directed by William Castle, House on Haunted Hill. And I just really wanted to talk. I just really wanted to talk about the film. The promotional gimmick, because William Castle was like the ultimate huckster.
Yeah, he is.
And I just wanted to talk about the fact that they used this great gimmick for the theatrical release called the Emergo, which would basically, during the most chilling scenes in the film where there was a skeleton or a ghost that appeared on the screen, the Emergo, they had these elaborate pulley system that allowed a plastic skeleton to like appear and float over the audience, which apparently just freaked the hell out of people. The thing that was funny about this, however, was not so much that the Emergo freaked the hell out of people, but that a certain director named Alfred Hitchcock took note of this chicanery, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty clever, and I love the fact that this is such a low-budget film, but it's still really creepy, and I've got this idea for a movie called Psycho. And allegedly, House on Haunted Hill really apparently inspired Alfred Hitchcock, who really was like, who was like, yeah, I can do a film. I don't have to spend a ton of money doing a film. I can do Psycho, and it's like super cheap. Right. And Castle, of course, was a Hitchcock film fan as well. And he later did a film, which I've never seen, which was done in 1961 called Homicidal. Mm-hmm. That was apparently like a direct ripoff of Psycho, but getting back to, of course, House on Haunted Hill,
which is, by the way, in one of the great L.A. mansions.
The Ennis House.
The Ennis House. I actually, our friend Sharon Yablon down in L.A.
It's not in the Ennis House.
No, but the exterior. The exterior. When they approach it, which is part of Frank Lloyd Wright's Aztec.
Right.
Style. Really cool house.
Yeah. The exterior is all shot of the Ennis house. The interior is all shot on a series of sound stages, which like gives this kind of like Victorian vibe, which really doesn't fit at all with the exterior. Getting back once again to to the plot of the film, it basically, a gentleman challenges 5 people who are desperate for money and says, whoever can stay in this haunted house for one night will earn $10,000. $10,000. And so the guests are trapped in the house with an assortment of terrors. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's not real. Everybody at the house is a stranger to one another. But their only commonality is they are all desperate for money. There's a newspaper columnist. There's a pilot, a psychiatrist who specializes in hysteria, and there is one woman who works for one of the companies of the house's owner. All need the money super bad, and all are willing to stay in the haunted house for $10,000. This film, of course, features the great Vincent Price in a really, really wonderful.
Oh, he was eating it up.
Yeah, he totally. Yeah, speaking of eating up the scenery, Vincent Price definitely does. This is a fun movie. It's great. I will say, don't be put off by the fact that it's black and white and that it's from 1959, because there are a couple. No joke, like couple legit scares still to this day in 2021. As a hardened horror fan, there are some legit scares in this film. House on Haunted Hill is like, I don't know. I mean, I think I might have met the mark with Trick and Trap, because that's really all. This is 100% of what this is.
It's a game show meets a haunted house. It's
yeah.
Almost, it's like I dare you.
Yeah, exactly. And of course it would be the inspiration for, many, many horror films down the road. Many horror films down the road.
This is one of the all-time great ghost story movies.
It is.
And of course, and I think it's one of William Castle's best movies.
It probably is. Yeah. And of course, this one is fully in the public domain, so you can watch it everywhere. You can even download your own copy.
Yep. Yeah. And I also love the fact, and if you happen to live in LA, go up and go to the Ennis house. You can drive up to it, and they kind of shoo you away if you're at the gates. But
right.
It's an amazing house.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Liz, what is your number one trick or trap film?
Okay, since I wasn't going to pick Saw, I picked a film that Bloody Disgusting said was raw, gritty, and an uncompromising horror film that puts the previous Saw film to shame. And this is when we were back at Saw 5, because this is 2009's The Collector.
Oh, yeah, I love The Collector.
Yeah. So, The Collector is written and directed by a duo, Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton, who won season 3 of that show, Project Greenlight. Remember when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon trying to find some movie makers? So, it was originally titled The Midnight Man, but they changed it to The Collector, and it stars Josh Stewart as Arkin O'Brien, who's a convict who, after he's out of jail, is working in construction, and he's on a house renovation project for the Chase family. This family, they're really nice. They have a little girl named Hannah, and he's very friendly with her, and they totally trust him. But his wife is in deep with some, unsavory characters and needs money fast. So he decides he's going to steal out of the Chase family safe in their house. He knows where it is because he's been renovating it. This gemstone, like a ruby, while they're on vacation. So he thinks that these people are going on vacation. So he's going to return to the house after hours. But guess what? They didn't go on vacation. They are trapped in the house by a crazed maniac who wears this like leather mask and has booby-trapped the entire house because he's called the Collector because he takes one person from the family and puts them in his collection and then just kills all the rest. In the other Collector films called The Collection and I don't remember the name of the other one. You learn more about him. Probably the collectibles. You learn more about the killer, but for this, you really just need to know he's a masked guy who doesn't say anything, who has booby trapped this entire house, and they've got some really, really good kills. There's one where someone steps on something, it wraps a rope around their ankle that pulls them up to the chandelier and then just drops them. Oh, there's one that will make your skin crawl where he puts a nail in a phone receiver. Yeah.
No.
Kids these days don't have to worry about it because they got cell phones. Yeah. But back in the day when you had a real phone. Yeah, that one. Ooh, there's like a floor covered in acid that melts your skin off. There's some, guillotine kind of wires. There's a room full of bear traps and a wall full of nails. And then a room full of fish hooks hanging from the ceiling, which is the least bloody of them, but you can your skin will crawl thinking of that. So this is torture porn through and through. Do not watch this if you do not want to just see people literally getting tortured and killed with these crazy traps. But if you want a Saw-like experience with maybe a little bit less quality than the first couple Saws, The Collector is going to be right up your alley.
I think it's actually pretty good.
Good call.
It's not bad.
I like The Collector. I have not seen.
I like the main guy. You'll recognize the actor Josh Stewart. He's been on a bunch of things like Criminal Minds, and he kind of has that southern. He looks like he's probably not that smart and everything like that. And he's got this soft-spoken voice, but he really carries this film. Then there's some other that guy.
Yep.
Cast members in it. But it's a good one. But it is definitely Saw, Hostel, that kind of level.
Right.
And there's some gratuitous nudity and things like that. But all in all, solid and definitely full of tricks and traps.
Yep. Now, have you seen The Collection or The Collected?
I have not.
Okay, I haven't either.
And I probably will. I don't know. Maybe I will. I read a little bit, about.
I would too. I'd kind of like to know a little bit more about The Collector.
Well, I'm going to have to see The Collector.
I got it from the Multnomah County Library. That's how I watched it. Because I was wandering by the video section. I was like, yeah, what the hell? I'll give it a go.
All right.
Yeah, Collector's good.
It's good. It's good, but it is bloody.
Yeah, oh yeah, super bloody.
County Library dishing out the torture porn.
Yep.
Thanks, Multnomah County Library.
So it's The Collector and then The Collection. They were supposed to be doing a third one, but it looks like as of April of this year, it might not be happening.
The Collected.
The Collected. Yep. The third film.
The Collecting.
The Collecting.
The Collecting.
All right. So my number one is I actually just recently reviewed the sequel to this. And this is sort of, and it's been described of if you don't have the stomach for Saw, but you like this kind of stuff, Escape Room, which was in 2018, starring Taylor Russell, Logan Miller, Jay Ellis, Tyler Labine, who's Mike from Tucker and who's Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, I like him.
Deborah Ann Wall, who is Amanda, plays Amanda. She's also been in Daredevil, and Nick Dodani. So these are, have you ever done an escape room?
Yeah.
So these are elaborate rooms with locks, switches, maps, charts, and all sorts of puzzles that need to be solved in order to eventually find the key that will get you out of the room.
Right.
You usually have about an hour to accomplish the mission, and they're all over Portland. It's a real it's a keep Portland weird thing.
Right.
And you can these people manage to have this little cottage industry doing these little pop-up businesses doing these turning old shopping mall spaces into escape rooms, and it's great. I love them. And some of them look like they were done out of like one sheet of drywall and a couple of racks of keys. And then some of these things actually they put in like real set designs, and they've gotten kind of elaborate over the last few years. But this is taking it to the next level. So Escape Room latches onto the craze and uses the premise that invitations were sent to a select group of people to an exclusive high-end escape room experience filled with the latest and greatest technologies, and anybody able to find the clues, solve the riddles, and get out of the room will be awarded with a huge cash prize. Sound familiar? $10,000.
$10,000.
I think it's actually more like $1 million. I forget what the actual prize was. Well, and at least that's what they thought was supposed to happen. Of course, cue Admiral Akbar to make it even geekier than it already is. It's a trap. At first, the puzzles present themselves as extreme challenges within the context of what you might expect from a typical escape room, but with high-end flourishes and wall panels that move and lots of amazing effects. But it doesn't take too long before the group finds out that the rooms are life-threateningly deadly. And what's more, even when they manage to find the solution to the room, another different deadly room awaits them. So the rooms are really the centerpiece of the film.
Right.
The set designs and the actual puzzles are terrific. And the great thing about the movie is, as a viewer, you're solving the puzzles right along with the characters. And it does a good job of not being so tricky that you can't possibly follow along, and not so obvious that you're yelling at them to pull the lever, right? So, when they do manage to find these solutions, that they get, there's usually some big moment, and then it nabs one of the characters, right? And so you're getting this. There's this reduction. These 6 folks who get brought into these rooms. They were there. It starts off with a waiting room that they meet in. Turns out that's a giant oven that they're in, and then they have to get out before the thing hits basting mode. And then then they end up in a mountain cabin above a frozen lake of thin ice where they have to cross a frozen lake. And then my favorite one is there's an upside down bar. They enter into a room and they're on the ceiling and everything's hung upside down, and then they have to negotiate their way across the room because the tiles on the ceiling start falling away into a void, and if you fall into that, you're gone forever.
What?
And so this is the exact opposite of your Portland escape rooms, which are usually done out of a shopping mall. These things, it's like, wow, this is like a Disney challenge. And of course, the ones that in Portland, they don't try and kill you.
Right.
So eventually, what the surviving players come to realize that they are all people who are sole survivors of horrible accidents or traumas. Somebody has deliberately put them together and is seemingly testing them again to see it was whether by luck or by skill that they're still alive. It's a pretty good premise, and the characters are all distinct and colorful. And there's plenty of sort of infighting within the group, but then it's like, okay, in order to make this out alive, we've got to survive together. In this way, it's a lot like Cube.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of cues from Cube.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the movie, it's a bit formulaic because, it's like, okay, I got a number. Quick, enter this number into the code. Oh no, countdown clock, tick, 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 tick. And then, it's like at a certain point, then the whole room blows up and you're all dead if you don't beat the clock. But it does keep the adrenaline up. I think this would be a fun. It's absolutely a gateway film.
Oh really? Okay.
That it's PG-13.
What did you end up giving this one?
I gave the first one 4 and I gave the second one 3.5.
Okay.
It never has to play up to it doesn't do fakey jump scares.
Sure.
It's just that you can see the danger coming.
Right.
It's not a jump scare so much as beat the clock or something horrible happens, and sometimes they don't make it.
Right.
So if you like the premise of the Saw or Cube movies, but you can't handle the torture and the gore, this is a great movie.
Okay.
The second movie is sort of hey, let's get the band back together, and it's a tournament of champions. And it's like, it's an okay premise. And the characters, they brought back the surviving characters from the first movie, it's a nice touchstone moment.
Spoiler alert, there are survivors.
There are survivors, yeah. Unlike some of the other movies we talked about.
Yeah.
But
so
it's a PG-13 movie. They're not going to kill everybody off. That's not a PG-13 thing to do.
Yeah. True.
But it's a studio production, so they had a good chunk of money. It all looks terrific. They even put more money into the sequel, and those sets are even more spectacular, even if the plot's not quite as good.
Right.
But for a slow Saturday matinee on the sofa, it is a good movie.
All right. Well, let's get out of here with the tagline that Eric has, that Liz has.
So, Mike, have you done all three?
I have done all three. Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, let's go through our list because we had a
Yeah.
crazy list of films that we talked about this evening.
Okay. Well, I started out with Circle from 2015, directed by Aaron Hahn and Mario Mosconi. And then I have Dave Made a Maze, one of my favorite movies from 2018, directed by Bill Watterson. And then, as I just described, I had Escape Room, directed by Adam Robitel.
Liz, what do you got?
I had 1997's Cube, directed by Vincenzo Natali. 2014 Cub, directed by Jonas Govert. It's Dutch, and the Dutch title is Whelp. And 2009's The Collector, written and directed by Marcus Dunstan. And what you got, Mike?
The 1960 film directed by, what was the fellow's name? Nakagawa, Jikogu. The 19, where am I at here? The 2016 American horror comedy Fear Inc., directed by Vincent Masciale. And finally, the William Castle film from 1959, House on Haunted Hill.
Love House on Haunted Hill.
Cool.
Yay! Okay, now let's get out of here with the tagline.
Okay, so this is from Dave Made a Maze. He thought of everything but a way out. Tricks and traps, everybody.
Tricks and traps.